Your mother is a disgraceful farmhand, and mine is a refined woman, he chuckled, glancing smugly at his mother-in-law during the family dinner. She didn't react, didn't flinch. But the next day, he received a message from a notary. Before we continue, tell us, where are you watching from? Take a deep breath and welcome. Let the story unfold. Catherine felt awkward accepting the congratulations. 35. An age when you stop expecting miracles, but still quietly hope for better days. In the small living room, usually filled with warmth and coziness, today it was packed with people. Close friends, colleagues, and of course, family. Her mother, Mary Simmons, and her husband, Alexander. Alexander? Catherine shot a quick glance at him. He stood off to the side, sipping expensive cognac and chatting animatedly with a co-worker. There was a tone of arrogance in his voice, something Catherine had been noticing more and more lately. Mary Simmons was bustling near the table, adjusting plates of salad and cold cuts. She looked modest, as always. A simple dress, neat hairstyle, gentle wrinkles framing her kind eyes. Her movements spoke of care and warmth. Catherine loved her mother dearly for her calm, her strength, her quiet wisdom. The evening moved on. Guests ate, drank, offered toasts and well wishes, and then came the moment for Alexander to speak. The room fell silent. He cleared his throat and looked around, ready to take center stage. My dear Catherine, he began with a voice coated in false warmth. Today is your day, and I want to raise this glass to you. You are a wonderful wife, a great homemaker. Catherine smiled faintly, but unease was rising in her chest. She knew what was coming. But Alexander paused dramatically. We can't ignore the role a mother plays in shaping a woman's life. And here, he turned to Mary Simmons, we see two very different approaches to upbringing and lifestyle. Catherine felt her face flush. She tried to stop him with her eyes, but he was lost in his own performance. My mother, he continued, his voice growing more proud, Valentina. She's the embodiment of elegance, education, and sophistication. A professor, a doctor, a world traveler. But Mary Simmons, he smirked at his mother-in-law, a simple woman who spent her life working in a factory. A suffocating silence filled the room. Guests froze mid-bite, eyes glued to Alexander. Mary Simmons lowered her gaze. Don't get me wrong, Alexander added. I don't mean to offend Mrs. Simmons, but as they say, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Catherine had had enough. She stood up sharply. Sasha! She cried, but it was too late. Let's be honest, he said, sweeping the room with a glance. Mary is a farm girl. My mother, a lady of stature. They're worlds apart. The silence was deafening. Catherine saw tears rolling down her mother's cheeks. She rushed to her and wrapped her arms around her. Don't listen to him, Mom, she whispered. He's just drunk. But Mary pulled away and lifted her head to meet Alexander's eyes. There was no fear or hurt in her gaze, only contempt. You're a disgrace, she said quietly. Alexander chuckled. What did you say, Mary? I said you're a disgrace, she repeated, and you've forgotten whose home you're in. Alexander scowled. I live here. I'm family. No, Mary said firmly. You live here because I allowed it. But it seems you've mistaken my kindness for weakness. Catherine's hands were shaking. She turned to her husband. Sasha, she said with a steady voice, I'm asking you to stop. You've crossed the line. But Alexander, like a man possessed, couldn't let go. What do you know, Catherine? He snapped. You don't see how your mother is holding you back. My mother, she is the most precious person to me, Catherine interrupted. and I won't let you insult her. She's... Enough! Catherine screamed. She couldn't hold it anymore. Leave! Alexander stared at her in disbelief. What did you just say? I said get out. For a moment, he was silent, trying to process her words. Then his lips twisted into a sneer. Fine, he muttered. Whatever. He placed his glass on the table, turned, and left the room without a word to anyone. The guests, as if waking from a trance, began whispering among themselves. Catherine trembled. She hugged her mother and broke down in tears. It's okay, sweetheart, Mary whispered, comforting her. It's going to be okay. But Catherine knew nothing would be the same again. Alexander had crossed a line. He hadn't just insulted her mother, he'd shattered something inside her too, and she couldn't bear it any longer. After Alexander left, the evening was beyond repair. Guests, uneasy and embarrassed, began to trickle out. Catherine apologized, thanked them for coming, and slowly closed the door behind the last one. The apartment fell quiet. Mary Simmons wordlessly cleared the table. Catherine watched her, heart aching with guilt. Deep down she knew she had let it go too far. She had allowed Alexander to act this way, out of fear, out of love, out of hope that someday he might change. Mom, Catherine said softly, I'm sorry. This is my fault. I should have stopped him long ago. Mary paused and looked at her daughter. No, Catherine, this is not your fault. He's the one who chose to disrespect others. But why is he like this? Catherine asked. Mary sighed. Because he's insecure. He constantly needs to feel superior. He thinks his education and his background make him better than others. But that's not what matters. Then what does matter? Catherine asked. What matters, Mary said gently, is how you treat people, with respect, with kindness, no matter where they come from. What matters is being grateful for what you have, instead of always chasing more. What matters is love, true love, and how you care for your family. Catherine fell silent, reflecting on her mother's words. She knew they were true. Alexander had never truly valued what he had. He was always chasing status, approval, something shinier. And in doing so, he had lost what mattered most, his humanity. Mom, Catherine whispered, I don't want to live like this anymore. I'm tired of the arrogance, the cruelty, the constant criticism. Mary embraced her. I know, sweetheart. I know. What should I do? Do what feels right in your heart, Mary said. You've always known the answer. You just needed to be ready. Catherine nodded. She knew what she had to do. This chapter was over. The next morning, Alexander woke up with a pounding headache. The night's celebration, soaked in expensive cognac, had left a bitter aftertaste. He smirked to himself, remembering his brilliant toast, a moment of triumph, or so it felt then. Now, in the quiet daylight, something gnawed at his pride. He shook it off. Catherine would be sulking, as always. He reached for his phone. Among the clutter of ads and work emails, one message stood out. A letter from a notary's office. What the hell? He muttered, opening it. He scanned the text, and his face turned crimson. Termination of residential use rights. The apartment, their home, belonged to Mary Simmons. His right to live there was granted verbally, never legally registered. And now, with this letter, that right was revoked. He had 30 days to leave. The world around him blurred. He read it again, hoping it was a mistake, a joke. But no, it was real. Rage surged through him. How dare she, that gray mouse, that factory woman, tossing him out like a stray dog. Him, with 2 degrees, a thriving career, powerful connections. It was absurd, unthinkable. He leapt out of bed, yanking on his pants. Catherine was in the kitchen, humming softly while making breakfast. He stormed in like a hurricane. "What is this supposed to mean?" he roared, slamming the phone on the table. Hot coffee spilled, burning Catherine's hand. She flinched, but said nothing. She picked up the phone, read the message carefully. There was no shock in her eyes, no fear, just a calm strength Alexander had never seen before. "It means you'll need to find somewhere else to live, Sasha," she said, placing the phone down gently. "Are you insane? Do you even realize what this means for me? Where am I supposed to go?" "That's your problem," she replied, turning back to stir a pot on the stove. "You're a grown man. You'll figure it out." His jaw dropped. He had expected drama, tears, pleading. Instead, she stood there, quiet and firm, a stranger. "How can you say this after everything I've done for you?" "What have you done, Sasha?" Her voice cut through the room like ice. "Yes, you brought money home, but never once did you offer it with love. It was always a favor, a transaction, a reminder that I should be grateful just to have you." "But it's true," he snapped. "I could have married someone better, someone from a respectable family." "Then go, Sasha." She shrugged. "No one's stopping you. I'll stay here, with my farmhand mother, in this disgraceful little apartment." Alexander gasped, enraged. This wasn't the docile wife he knew. This was someone else, someone he couldn't control. He tried to soften, lowered his voice. "Kathy, come on. We have a child, a family. You can't throw all that away over some petty insult." "A petty insult?" Catherine turned to him, eyes blazing. "You humiliated my mother. You've done it for years. You belittled me, compared me to your perfect mother. I saw it, I felt it, I endured it, because I loved you. I prayed you'd change. But last night, that was the final straw." "But I apologized," he argued. "Your apologies mean nothing," she said coldly. "You're not sorry for what you said. You're sorry for what it cost you." Alexander felt something collapse inside him. He tried to talk about their son, their memories, their years together. But Catherine stood her ground. "You have 30 days, she said again. "If you want help finding a place, I'll help, but you're not staying here." At that moment, Mary Simmons entered the kitchen. She quietly placed a kettle on the table and poured herself a cup of tea. "Mom," Catherine said softly, "I told him." Mary nodded, never looking at Alexander. "I always knew you were strong," she said to her daughter. "You just needed time to remember." Alexander felt like a shadow between them, unwelcome, irrelevant. You have no right," he stammered at Mary. "This is my home." She sipped her tea calmly. "You were never registered here," she said. "I made sure of it. Something in my gut told me this day would come." "This is illegal," he growled. "I'll sue." "Go ahead," Mary shrugged. "Best of luck." He said nothing. He knew she was right. Legally, he had no ground to stand on. He had always relied on influence and charm. But here, in this modest home, none of that mattered. Here, there was only truth. And the truth was not on his side. Alexander looked at Catherine. Her eyes held no sympathy, no regret, only quiet determination. It was over. Truly, finally over. "You'll regret this," he said under his breath. "Both of you." Catherine didn't flinch. Mary only shook her head, slowly. Alexander turned and left the kitchen. Behind him, their hushed voices continued, low, steady, united. In the living room, a worn travel bag sat waiting. Catherine had packed it for him, carelessly, without ceremony, his favorite sweater, his toothbrush, a few books, everything he had earned in years of marriage, condensed into a bag. He saw the framed photo on the dresser. It was of the two of them, young, happy, full of promise. He remembered loving her once, or maybe just the idea of her. He picked up the frame and hurled it at the wall. The glass shattered, shards scattered across the room like the broken pieces of a dream. He stuffed his clothes into the bag with clumsy, angry hands, shoving shirts, slamming the zipper. It felt like trying to force a life back into a box that no longer fit him. Catherine watched from the doorway, silent, her expression unreadable. When he finished, he looked around one last time. The room no longer felt like his. The warmth, the comfort, it was never his to begin with. He had sneered at it, mocked it, and now it rejected him. He turned to her. "Do you even realize what you've done?" he hissed. "You've ruined my life." Catherine shook her head. "No, Sasha, you ruined it. I just helped you see it." He laughed bitterly. "You call that the truth? This is your jealousy talking. You've always felt beneath me. That's what this is." "No, Sasha," she said calmly. "I felt small when I saw you belittle my mother, when you dismissed my feelings, when you acted like you were better than everyone. This isn't about education, it's about decency." He didn't respond, just glared at her with hollow rage. Then he walked to the nursery. Their son, little Michael, was on the floor, playing with blocks. He didn't notice the tension in the air, just kept building a tower, carefully, one block at a time. Alexander knelt beside him. "Michael," he said softly, "Daddy's leaving." Michael looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. "Where?" "To another place, but I'll come see you." Michael frowned, confused. Then, without a word, crawled to Mary, who was sitting in her armchair, and clung to her legs. Alexander felt something pierce his chest. He reached out to touch his son's head, but stopped. He didn't belong here anymore. He was a stranger now. Mary looked at him. There was no gloating in her eyes, no victory, only sorrow and an ageless wisdom. "Education, Alexander," she said quietly. "It's not a diploma. It's how you treat others. It's humility. It's respect. You got the degrees, but you never learned to be a decent man." Alexander said nothing. He stood, grabbed his bag, and walked to the door. He paused in the doorway, turned back one last time. Catherine stood still, her face calm, her decision made. He left. The door closed behind him with a dull thud. The hallway was dim and silent. He descended the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. Out on the street, the wind was sharp. He opened his car door, tossed the bag in, and sat behind the wheel. He looked up, one last glance at the window above. For years, he had believed this place was his kingdom, that he ruled it with intellect and charm. But now he was just a man in a car, alone. He started the engine, drove off, into the unknown. Back upstairs, the silence lingered. Catherine walked to the window and watched as his car disappeared down the road. She turned to her mother. "Mom," she whispered, "thank you." Mary walked over, wrapped her arms around her daughter. "It's going to be all right, Catherine. Everything will be all right." And in that embrace, Catherine felt something she hadn't in years: peace, safety, strength. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. Raising a child alone, facing judgment, healing old wounds. But she was no longer afraid. She had her mother, she had her son, and she had hope. That night, after Michael fell asleep, Catherine and Mary sat at the kitchen table. sharing tea in silence. "Mom," Catherine said, "I'll never forget what you've done for me." "Don't be silly, honey. I just protected us. I protected you and myself. He always looked down on us. All those years, I was tired of pretending I had to prove myself." Mary reached across the table, took her daughter's hand. "You don't have to prove anything, Catherine. Not to anyone. You're a wonderful mother, a loving daughter, and that's enough." Catherine's eyes welled up. "But how will he live, Mom? What will he do?" "He's a grown man. He'll figure it out," Mary said. "What matters is that you and Michael are safe and happy." Catherine took a deep breath. "You're right. You always are." "I just want you to be free," Mary said. "To be loved, truly loved, and never again to feel small because of someone else's pride." Catherine nodded. She knew her mother spoke the truth. She gazed around the small apartment, the worn walls, the humble furniture, the lingering smell of tea and warmth. It wasn't glamorous, but it was home, a home built on love, not ego, on kindness, not status. And tomorrow would be a new beginning. And now, if you've ever felt trapped in a life that's not truly yours, if you've ever longed to reclaim your strength, your peace, your energy, you need to hear about a recent discovery, a mysterious purple shell uncovered by researchers that may help triple your body's fat-burning ability even while you sleep. No crash diets, no brutal workouts, just nature working quietly in your favor. Curious? The details are waiting for you in the video description. Because sometimes the smallest change leads to the biggest transformation. And maybe, just maybe, this is your moment.